Banqueiros governando o mundo.
Bankers rule the world, not the UN. Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws. Rothschild. Banks have become a global threat. In 2002, Western financial institutions were considered magical in risk management and capital allocation. Today, we see that they are magical in market manipulation and other deceptive practices. Joseph Stiglitz. The number of billionaires in the world has doubled since 2008, when the global financial crisis exploded. The 85 people of the wealthiest families have the equivalent of the poorest 50% of the world. Oxfam at Davos in 2014. To understand how we got here, we need to master some new concepts of general social science. Capitalism, socialism, and theocracies are just the trenches of hidden and disguised forces, like the wolf in Little Red Riding Hood, protected by gullible public opinion. But this conspiracy can be brought to light and illustrated by the triadic systemic paradigm as the first motor of history, replacing the monadic paradigm and free association. This engine extends the triune brain, which is expressed in three subgroups of behavior, as the second engine of history. The financial wolf, grandma, and the hunters are still to come. The first engine comes from ecology and its food chain of rival, predator, and prey. The second engine comes from the triadic game and allocation of satisfiers or goods that meet human needs. We say former right, former left, former center, because replacing these old concepts with official, anti-official, oscillating is more universal, three-dimensional, and corresponds to proportionalism. It can apply to the atom, to plants, to animals, to a tribe, a family, the market, politics, and international relations. First, there was tribal communism. Then came the commons and the beginning of private property with hints of dispute. Then came the agricultural and industrial surpluses with exchanges and market competition for capital accumulation, with the violation of workers, colonies, and the environment. Finally came the production of money through financial speculation, without producing real goods, to the ruin of individuals and borrower countries transformed into financial colonies. Tricultural evolution and tripartisan, tri-competitive economy of the modern age was accelerated by the Protestant Reformation and Revolution. Triune matter coalesced in the triune brain, which generated the three subgroups with their rivalry for satisfactors. Then the three cultures all culminated in the three supreme powers, their institutions or trenches. Triune mattergy has a law of expansion and maximum hierarchization, which is expressed as centralization, monopolization, and concentration of power and capital accumulation at the top of the hierarchy. In a word, maximocracy. So all race to climb to the maximum power position to win and expropriate others. This position is the official subgroup or officialdom at ever higher levels. The pinnacle of religious officialdom is being pope or ayatollah in a theocracy. The apex of political officialdom is to be president of the government and is called democracy. And the zenith of economic officialdom is to be head of the central bank, which is econocracy. If the winner is an individual or group, they are champions. If a country or bloc, empire. If industry, it is a monopoly of real property. If a bank or financial company, it's a monopoly of symbols, symbols of real property, of money. The theory and practice of this money manipulation is monetarism. There was a time when the supreme public officialdom was robed in theocracy, which still exists in places. After the Protestant Reformation and Revolution in the West, the supreme officialdom in public was clothed in democracy. Finally, with the technology of navigation, of mercantilism, industrial revolution, and techno-banking of microelectronics, the supreme officialdom is cloaked in econocracy, economic power or bankocracy. This power is private, dominating and surreptitiously manipulating all oscillating power as servile puppets, while preserving the facade of elected political government, successfully co-opting clergy and facing ineffective opposition from Western anti-official groups and Islamic banking. Officialdom, anti-officialdom, and oscillation in three dimensions or hierarchies are eternal, changing their disguises and costumes in each historical epoch. Although this involves effort and the uncertainty of win, lose, draw, that's not what horrifies humanity. On one side is the disparity in the allocation of satisfactors, property or wealth, by usury, theft, hoarding, monopoly, totalitarianism, tyranny, corruption, and imperialism by voracious wolves, and on the other side, the resulting underdevelopment, debt, austerity, poverty, disease, alienation, despair, war, environmental and human decay. Bankers are rescued, but not entire peoples, not the ecology, nor hope. Engaged in this race toward maximocracy, neoliberal economic officialdom reached extremes not seen in the world before. Between 1983 and 2010, 5% of the population with larger holdings saw its assets grow by 83%, while 80% of the world's population saw their holdings decrease by 3.2%, according to Michel. The market is a rigged roulette game that grows the wealthy. Who needs them? At an annual rate of 5%, well above the average growth of the country and the world, which is 1.5% to 2%. This socio-moral and irrationality gap is due to lack of understanding of the triadic game, the arsenals of each subgroup, and the lack of human capacity to moderate, limit, or in the extreme case, exterminate abusive economic officialdom and their owners. Tyrannicide is a sacred right of the people. How did this economic horror come about? With the creation of banks by private individuals, as artfully explained by Australian Larry Hannigan in I Want the Earth plus 5%. Briefly, the mental cultural process evolves from concrete to abstract and from matter to dematerialization. It is the transformation of the real triune world into triune symbols and respective syntaxes, or laws and rules of operation. After precious metal coins with a few safekeepers, paper currency took over as a symbol of satisfactors, with the creation of networked private banks under the control of central banks. With microelectronics, we have arrived at total dematerialization, currency being nothing more than bits or bitcoins in computers of banks, almost entirely detached from the physical production of satisfactors and goods, producing wealth by financial speculation and expropriating those who actually produce. With the economic power of central banks and their networked owners, handling deposits, creating invisible currency from thin air, autonomously fixing commercial and interbank interest rates, and paying economic hitmen like John Perkins to infiltrate governments, to corrupt them and create gigantic debts paid by the depredation of citizens via austerity programs, we arrive at the top of real-world government. We are no longer governed by states and elected political governments, nor by a decrepit UN or by divine or mythical providence. The government of the world by the 1% of humanity and control of all wealth is accomplished by the invisible hand of the bankers and their private institutions, with its unscrupulous and dirty ways of devastation and capital accumulation, creating bubbles, speculative games, inflation adjustments, budget cuts, privatization, austerity, etc., to devour old ladies and children in financial colonies like Greece. Where is the headquarters of this global government? Who are the rulers of this dictatorial economic power? What can be expected from them? The wolf pack of bankocracy, or plutocracy, relocated its hiding place from London to Wall Street with the creation of the totalitarian Federal Reserve Bank, which is private and not federal, co-owned primarily by four leaders of the pack: BlackRock, State Street Corp, FMR Fidelity, and Vanguard Group. Who are the real owners? Just look at the megabanks and names associated with them. For now, there will be intensification of despoiling of politicians and governments and citizens and customers by the psychopaths of this new world economic government of bankers, speculators, rating agencies, and its conspiratorial societies like the Bilderberg Group and others that work even more secretly. But the wolves of Wall Street can expect the arrival of hunters with their dogs to confiscate and nationalize private banks, returning national wealth and loans to public banks under the control of state governments, which also are infested with wolf cubs, but there will be hunters and tyrannicide for them too. Someday there will be a revolution against bankocracy and establish a proportionalist international public government replacing the UN, which will regulate wealth and credit triadically of, by, and for humanity. To hasten the arrival of that day, we need people who understand the grammar of money and understand how to limit officialdom's control of money. Start by downloading the Glossary of Money Grammar, enroll in the online course General Social Science, and share this video with your network. Life will thank you.
A vida agradece.